Hi, friends. Welcome to part 3 of this 3-part series on neurodiversity in the world of TCKs. If you haven't already viewed or listened to the first 2 installments, I do encourage you to do that. The first is an interview with Jenna Lee Goodwin, mom to 3 neurodivergent TCKs, and she shares everything that she has learned raising her daughters overseas and everything she has learned in her training to become a life coach. The second installment is an article that goes even more in depth into the topic, really analyzing what neurodiversity actually means, and then looking at how it uniquely shows up in MKs and TCKs, and how cross-cultural traits can actually mask neurodivergent traits, which leads to later diagnoses for a lot of them. There's a link in the show notes that will take you to a page where all 3 installments are available, where you can choose to listen to them or read them or view them. Today, I am thrilled to introduce you to these 11 adult TCKs. They've already contributed so much wisdom to the article. Go to that article to read some of the quotes that I pulled from each of their interviews. And now we get to hear their stories in their own words. And if you're viewing this instead of just listening to it, with their facial expressions and their mannerisms and their gestures, adding extra layers to what they're telling us. My goal in sharing these interviews with you is not to pigeonhole the neurodivergent experience. Instead, it's to give you a very small taste of just how diverse this community is. They are not cookie-cutter people. My hope, as you listen to their stories, as you hear about their challenges and their blessings and their conquering moments and their hard-won insight, my hope is that it will whet your appetite to learn more and to do more reading and investigation on your own time. Just a note about how the content is going to play out. One of our participants, Jacob, is an accomplished writer, and he began his interview by reading to me a piece that he wrote about everything that led up to his diagnosis. It is so intimately written, it is so beautifully written, that I didn't want to break it up with other pieces of other individuals' interviews. So the first 3 minutes are Jacob telling his story in a poetic and heart-filled way. And then after that, all 11 participants will offer their answers to a series of questions I asked them. There's a QR code at the beginning of the video and in the show notes, and if you click that, you'll be taken to a TCK profile page where you'll be able to learn more about them, their names, their ages, where they've lived, where they come from, what they're doing today, and what their diagnoses are. I figured that would be easier than having to put it up on the screen every time one of their faces appears in front of you. So maybe have that open on another device while you're watching this video, just so you can keep up with who's who. My prayer as you enter into their stories and listen for the next few minutes is that something new might be revealed to you, something illuminating or even perspective shifting. There is so much we cannot understand if we are not part of the neurodivergent community, and we have so much to learn from souls like these. Thank you for caring enough to invest your time today. And now, here's Jacob.
I felt wrong all my life. Life kept confirming that I was different. This was complicated by the fact that some of what I now understand to be neurodivergent traits was interpreted by my parents to be arrogance or a lack of faith. The way that I showed up earnestly to them compelled them to assess fundamental aspects of myself as morally wrong and spiritually deficient, which for me as a kid, earnestly trying to be useful for God's mission, seemed to me to be ultimate failure. I felt wrong from a very young age and created an edited life to compensate. My layers of self-monitoring were thick and urgent and exhausting. By my adolescence, I was effectively masking. This is the first sense in which I felt my brain worked differently. It was more of a sense that my whole being was deficient, broken, or failed. My whole life had folded around the question of whether I am fundamentally wrong and acceptable or not. Last year, age 31, events precipitated the worst episode of breakdown I had yet experienced. And the core question of my life came all the way up and out and had to land somewhere. There was no stuffing it down this time. I was only sleeping 2 to 4 hours a night. By 6 weeks in, I was losing the fight. The catalyst of healing was that other people finally saw me. The inner self I had tried to sever from me had now crashed out past my layers of suppression and self-monitoring. The question was, can I, as I truly am, be held, or am I too heavy? Why does the world recoil from me when I present my actual self? Why does it only love me when I'm editing? I would have slipped away had not my family held me. I was able to cry only when someone touched me, held me, and stayed. Then my father, fascinatingly, heard God say, "Jacob has a different experience of life than you do." Then he watched a bunch of videos about autism and realized that I fit them quite neatly. Compelling him to finally understand about me finally made me feel like he saw me. They compelled him at last to say, among other things, none of it was your fault, which is kind of exactly what every kid needs to hear. I had at last a full affirmation of my humanity and a right to live. I had at last permission to own my own humanity, at least more so in more of its fullness. I am different, with needs that are different and vulnerabilities that are in me a lot more sensitive than they are for other people. All of this is true, and I deserve support and not to have to cope on my own. And that's how I got here.
I'm Marla. I am somewhere on the autism spectrum and have been screened for ADHD. I work as a biblical counselor to women.
My name is Camille Kautzman. I am on the autistic spectrum, and I'm a tax accountant.
My name is Elijah. I am twice exceptional autistic. So what that means is I'm both cognitively gifted and autistic. I am currently a court and client representative with the Ministry of the Attorney General at the Barrie Courthouse here in Ontario, Canada, primarily doing estates, a little bit of civil small claims.
My name is Jacob. I am autistic. I am chronically ill, which complicates things. I've done background acting. I've done some audiobook narration. I've just had to find things that work for being ill. I've had to find things that work for my brain, too.
I'm Allison, and I have a diagnosis or diagnoses of inattentive type ADHD and level 1 autism. I've been in marketing, web communications, in the higher education context, in a Christian nonprofit organization, and I have done some freelance and contract work since then, from writing and editing to graphic design, and even things like gig work, shopping for people and delivering groceries to their house, which fits really well with my inattentive ADHD.
My name is Steven. I have been diagnosed with ADHD, and I'm a recent counseling graduate.
Hi, my name is Emily. I live in Vienna, Austria, but I was born in Canada and I'm a missionary kid. I have multiple diagnoses, one including autism level 1. I have various different learning challenges, so dyslexia, dysgraphia, and dyscalculia. I also have something called FND, which stands for functional neurological disorder, which causes a whole crap ton of symptoms, but one of them is tics, so that is uncontrollable movements and sounds. I am currently in a autism program specifically for people on the spectrum. So it's basically to prepare you for work or school or whatever that ends up being in your case.
My name is Corbin. I have OCD, and my plans for the future are to move to Chicago and figure it out from there.
My name is Anna. I am autistic and I'm a gate agent.
I'm Debbie Miller. My Siswati name is Figile Sibanze. I finally diagnosed autistic at age 53. I'm now age 64. I do have an ADHD diagnosis, which for me is secondary, and I have auditory processing disorder as a diagnosis. I'm a research methodologist for social sciences, so sociology, psychology, education, anthropology. I help design studies. I understand the whole life cycle from brainstorming a topic to disseminating the findings.
Hi, I'm Megan. I have ADHD and attentive type, and I am a mental health therapist.
My mother suspected that I was somewhere ADD, ADHD when I was in early elementary school. My older sister, who was about 2.5 years older than me, could sit perfectly still through a church service, whereas I was all over the place.
The giftedness was probably the first thing that was evident. Many people said, "Oh, you're super intelligent, really smart." I was primarily into nonfiction materials, almanacs, atlases, countries, flags, birds, all that kind of stuff from when I was about 8, actually. Like, I remember reading the almanac, not knowing what it was before I went to the Philippines, actually, when I was 8.
I had quite stereotypical for a girl autism. I took all my seashells that my grandma would bring from Mexico or wherever it was, and I would line them up based off of size and color, and then also just I didn't like eye contact, and then I would scream whenever my parents would buy me a new pair of shoes and try to put them on me, and they had to be the exact same pair of shoes.
I was flighty and chaotic and loud and just unorganized and thought it was more of like a character flaw.
Looking back, the first tell I had OCD was when I was a toddler. Um, and if I couldn't put my finger in my belly button in my car seat, I was inconsolable.
I just wasn't able to connect with people. I couldn't like fit into a group. In some ways I didn't want to fit into a group, but also like I needed a place to belong.
I would say things that I thought were interesting in the family car, and nobody would say anything. No, there was just no interest in lots of things that I thought were very important, like the etymology of a word or something about nature that I had learned. 100,000 micro dismissals convinced me that I cannot present this because it pushes people away from me.
Even around other missionary kids, it was like we were at different frequencies a lot of the time.
I loved Star Wars. That was a big thing. But I loved it to a point where I was a 10-year-old that was cosplaying with my little cardboard lightsaber and running in the woods for hours and writing 300-page novels on science fiction and fantasy, detailed research, invented my own language, all that stuff.
When I was 3 years old, I remember laying on the floor in the hallway and thinking, oh my, there's all these bubbles in my head, these light floating bubbles. Other people seem to have words in their head. I have bubbles in my head.
I think my parents tried to adapt. Like, I always used to get really upset because my mom would give me a chore and then tell me to come back after doing it. It was like, okay, go do this and come back, and then go do this and come back. And I'd always be really upset. Why can't you just give me all of the things and I can just do them instead of having to run all over the place? She said, because you'll forget if I give you more than 3 things. So I'm giving you one, and then you come back and I'll give you the next one. But like, we didn't know to call it that. We were just like, oh, Steven's a little different. He's a little forgetful.
I think as I got older, struggling academically in some areas, struggling what I now know is executive function. How I define executive function is being able to actually prioritize and organize and sort, fill in the blank. It could be life, my calendar, assignments, items in a room.
As a kid, I always felt like I was studying people a little bit to figure out how to blend in with them. And I thought everybody did that. And I thought everybody like scripted a way of saying what they wanted to say.
And this is older, but like I sat on our couch a very specific way, arm up on the armrest, feet straight out. And if there was anything in my peripheral vision, I could not watch a movie. Everything, toys, everything had to be out of the way.
I had a French teacher tell me I was annoying and a catastrophe and kind of those, why can't you get this? Why can't you ever be quiet? Stop being a class clown. And some of that is personality. I think I'm very social. And then also I just had like no impulse control.
Outside of the family, I was, the star child of first in class and always helping cleaning. And I never wanted to hang out with people. So I always seemed like a great guest because I would clean everything. Because I just needed to I needed order and I needed to be able to have nothing in the physical world to be able to enter my own world.
I noticed that I would mix up words. The example I remember is marshmallow and ice cube. Those words were floating in my vocabulary, but I didn't know which went with which item.
My OCD is mainly intrusive thoughts, which was like a real problem when I was younger, because if I saw something scary on TV, I would just replay it in my mind over and over. So like there was some nights where like I couldn't sleep.
And then with dorm parents, my dorm mother was very, very hard on me for whether I was just a little bit too messy or said the wrong things, or actually a big thing that she would pick on was my posture, which my posture I now understand is actually part of the whole interconnected web of autism, ADHD, and something called hypermobility spectrum disorder, which affects tissues, basically connective tissues, which can for some people mean that you have poor posture naturally.
As I grew up, I continued to associate it with oh, maybe I'm just too introvert. Maybe I'm just too intellectual. I just was always with the adults. I was always wanting to learn more and read more and all that stuff.
The way that I realize now this showed up for me, some of it was some really high functioning anxiety and sensory overload that would happen. That showed up for me as turning to being really high performing in a lot of ways. I always described it in school as I either fully understood something and I could ace a test, or just really shock people with my essay writing or paper writing in how well I could perform, or I was failing. It was black or white. I either got it or I didn't.
We didn't know a lot of that stuff was because I had something diagnosable. It was just like, oh yeah, he's different.
I would smile all the time, like very consistently. And nobody could tell when I was angry or sad about anything except for my brother.
So there are some days where like by noon I had to lay down because my brain felt so fried from having to constantly fight against things that I was like having a compulsion to do.
To me, how it feels is just kind of constant chaos or a stream of ideas. It doesn't turn off.
There's a lot of sensory and there's a lot of brain body overload and disconnection that results in all kinds of sensory concerns and difficulty knowing what's going on where in our bodies. And so we aren't always able to be aware of our body signals the way typical people are.
I wasn't doing well at my job. I was getting told off by my managers and by other staff that I wasn't doing enough, that I was too lazy, that I was putting off work, or that I was being difficult by not learning some specific procedures that I was being asked to do. And same went for grad school. I had a hard time doing assignments. I never read the books all the way through. And so, yeah, I think it was around first year of grad school, so 3 years ago, where I was like, something's different, something's wrong. That it's not just like, oh, I'm being lazy.
Because I'm always looking at things and analyzing them and all, I can tell a lot of patterns in the world, which I think is great. I mean, it helps, especially when you have to mask all the time. You know how to act in a certain situation.
Earlier this year, I was having huge problems with anxiety attacks and like anxiety, and I always felt like my breath I was never getting enough air, and a large part of that is I had compulsions to breathe weird.
Your ADHD brain, which they believe is related to dopamine, and the brain is always seeking rewards, always seeking stimulation. And on the autistic side of me, I need calm, I need structure, I need I need quiet and safe spaces. I need a lot of alone time. So it's like the two things are always pulling against me. So if somebody asks me to go out, when I was younger, go out for coffee, go out for drinks, whatever it was, I always want to do stuff. But I get myself into trouble on usually when I do that, unless it's going to be a very safe space with a very safe person.
Looking back, I'm like, oh, of course I have ADHD. I remember doing an interview, like a mock interview, and the feedback I got was give better eye contact. Like when you're thinking about answering, don't look away. But that is, I mean, I notice it even now. Like if I'm looking, I have a really hard time thinking. It's almost overwhelming and overstimulating.
There's two different things, and they kind of show up the same way for me, or very similarly for me, which is like echolalia and vocal stimming. Echolalia is like repeating the thing that a person just said to you, or like just mimicking a sound back to someone that they've made. And I do that a lot. And then also like vocal stimming, like making the same sound over and over and over again to the point of like obnoxiousness.
I still get compulsions to touch things like the corner of a monitor or like the underside of a table. It's like I can feel like right now, it's like I can feel the corner of my monitor. And when I press my finger to it, it feels like putting a piece into a puzzle. Like the connection between the monitor and my finger feels like a shot of dopamine.
I have a hard time reading my body's signals a lot. Like I'll be in such a bad mood some days, and it's like, why am I so pissed off today? And it's like, when's the last time you had water? 2 days ago.
One of the biggest expressions of my ADHD is actually getting way too involved in ministry things in my church. So my brain, I always want to help. I always want to get involved. I always see potential. I always see something that I can help with. So I used to sign up for everything. When I had a very small child and was pregnant with my second child, I was an elder. I was on a church planting team. I sang 2 to 3 times a month in my church service, and I was working full time in the middle of a promotion to an assistant director role. Now I know that was my way of feeling like I could belong. At the same time, it was sucking all of the life out of me and burning me out.
I am known in my family for being too loud and also for being the one who brings the fun. The party doesn't start till I'm there, which is just a really interesting dynamic.
A lot of the assets have been, again, strong attention to detail, advanced problem solving, analytical skills.
I'm really quick on my feet in a lot of situations, and I think you just kind of get that adrenaline rush, the dopamine hits, and you just can kind of keep going. And if I'm like locked in, I can fly through some stuff and get stuff done.
It's allowed me to see the uniqueness of each person in their journey in terms of the way it interacts with my faith, is that because I am not a stock standard Christian, I do not look at other people like stock standard people.
Being autistic and feeling a little bit on the outside of things, I notice when other people are kind of just a little bit excluded.
Being neurodivergent, especially my type of neurodivergence, level 1 autism and ADHD combination, I'm highly creative. So I can make a lot of connections between things that other people can't. Everything, I connect dots everywhere, and that can be a real asset in jobs that I've been in, and that's been something that I've been praised for in the past.
It's an asset because I think having felt kind of excluded from a lot of normal society for a while, I think it's helped me develop empathy towards people that aren't the same as the mainstream culture.
We're very detail-oriented. Our brains register the details, and from there we see the patterns and then build the bigger picture.
I think it's led to being really creative in a lot of ways because I like to try new things, and that does provide a lot of dopamine boosts. I have a lot of hobbies, so I have a lot of interests, which is fun because I'm never bored. I'd like to think that's also my personality and not just ADHD. But I think that ADHD spice kind of adds some, ooh, let's try this or let's go do this.
I work a lot with refugees and all that stuff because they have so much paperwork, and I love paperwork.
For me and many others, especially women who are neurodivergent, in whatever way they are, we are hyper empathetic, and that can be an asset. It can be something where we want to help people who are hurting, even like, animals. A lot of autistic people are very, very attached to animals, and they go into careers related to animals because they feel deeply about animal welfare. I mean, being empathetic is great, but it's also a major challenge. And I really like being around people, but I can't do it for very long because I feel too much of the energy around me. This is going to sound a little woo-woo, but I'm energetically sensitive. So hyperempathy is both an asset and a difficult aspect of being neurodivergent.
I have a really hard time staying organized, and I knew that, had figured it out. And now the challenges of managing a family of 6, it sometimes gets so overwhelming, and just then I crash and burn. Even though I know it's the ADHD piece, there's kind of then that spiral of the negative self-talk, and a lot of shame, I think, as a woman.
Because I was hypersensitive, but also ashamed of it. Conflict was terrifying, just like any conflict, because it agitated me, and I didn't know how to deal with that kind of the neurological activation. I was just so instantly terrified. So I just kind of we're really paralyzed with moments of conflict with most people. Kind of shut down.
As I look back, I noticed where I began to really struggle with math. And interestingly enough, now we know that dyscalculia is one of the areas of neurodivergence.
Autism. It's definitely one of the most stigmatizing, if not the most stigmatizing condition, even among the disability community.
I got bullied a lot. I mean, kids are ruthless, so they're gonna bully.
There's a lot of sensory stuff I noticed. The mixing background conversation really kind of just was almost, agitating, I guess is probably the best way to describe it, where, the sensory gating isn't there. You mix everything. The old saying, oh, you hear everything but can't understand nothing type of a thing.
It's really hard. When you have both autism and ADHD, your brain is trying to move in two completely different directions at all times.
I was bullied, depending on the school, for basically being different. They didn't like the way I looked. They didn't like the way I acted, and I didn't speak the language. It was hard enough just to learn the language, and then to have people literally make fun of you for anything that you ever do, plus having a learning challenge in a system that doesn't understand neurodiversity at all. It was quite bad.
It was hard because I also didn't fit in church at all. We went to a German-speaking church. Again, I didn't like being social with kids my age because I didn't like things that entertained teens and all. I just found it so boring. And I very much like theology and all. I like rules and order. And I mean, hence why I read the whole Bible when I was 12. I was just like, yeah, duh, of course we have to do this.
The world wasn't created for neurodivergence. Many neurodivergents will say, oh, it's too bright, it's too loud, it's too smelly, it's too cold, too hot, too windy. Oh, the clothing doesn't feel right.
For the longest time, I was like, I'm just really anxious. That was my kind of frame of reference of I'm just anxious.
Just the self-monitoring subroutines went on. Like, what's wrong with me? Oh, it was that. I said that. Why was that wrong? I don't know, but I can't do that. And it worked. And I became more of an acceptable, narrow individual. Really nice, really useful, really, really good, but in anguish. because there was no place for the breadth of me because I had cut it all down.
We are forever like the brand new baby, taking in all this sensory information, which amounts to traffic jams in our body and brain. Our bodies and brains don't connect. And then everybody is expecting me, well, you know this, you can do that, you know this, you can connect all these dots. Surely you can unravel your phone cords. Surely you can figure out a way to talk with the doctors. Surely you are capable of advocating for yourself and articulating for yourself.
I switched because my mental health was so bad, I physically could not handle Austrian school anymore. And I was practically forced to switch because I was hiding in the bathroom every single break because I was terrified of people. I was throwing up because I was so stressed. I had so many physical symptoms that I could not handle it.
The challenges were really extreme bouts of burnout, a lot of anxiety, depression, struggling with emotional health.
I think there was a lot of loneliness. We grew up, with so many missionaries around us. And I was always like, I want to do that. I love people in my home, but it's just like, I don't like the interaction part. And I was like, oh, I'm a bad Christian because I don't like comforting people. I find it awkward, and I don't like cheering people up or things like that.
In general, I blamed it on being a third culture entity. I don't fit in the Philippines because I'm Canadian. I don't fit in Canada because I lived in the Philippines and was formed by the cultural expectations there.
Even in adolescence, it was okay, the giftedness masked the autism for a long time. It was, oh, you're the quirky, gifted, white foreign child type of a thing,
TCKs and MKs have a lot of spoken and unspoken expectations put on them. And for many of those people, especially if there's like a spiritual aspect to those expectations, internalize those things and try to regulate themselves inside so that they can meet those expectations. Because if they don't, like maybe they're going to hell, or they're getting disapproval from the people around them, or from supporters and teachers. And so it's very likely that a lot of neurodivergent TCKs and MKs are masking very heavily. They have a mask on when they're interacting with you. They may not come across as being autistic or having ADHD, but they're probably drowning inside.
I always felt a little odd compared to others, and I associated a lot of my differences with being a TCK, actually, because you're never fitting completely in groups, even as a child.
It's hard to separate I work differently because I'm from another culture, and I work differently because my brain's wired differently. Because I think for the longest time, like through most of my childhood, even into high school, I had thought that it was just because it's like, oh, it's because I'm mixed and I'm a missionary kid, so that's the issue. Like that's why it's different. That's why I have trouble making sense of like the expectations of what's supposed to be a certain way with the people around me. So it must just be a cultural thing, or it must just be that I haven't understood something quite right.
I didn't get my ADHD diagnosis till I was 29. So I'm 32, so I've only had it like 3 years. I think the hard part is I didn't necessarily struggle academically. So I don't think it was always just Megan's just loud. She's just loud and a little chaotic. And so I had a lot of really confidence issues because of that. I felt very insecure, very I still struggle with that. But knowing it's ADHD has kind of helped be like, oh, here are some things I can do to support myself better.
Yeah, I just turned 27 when I was diagnosed and started looking at stuff from a retrospective point of view and was like, okay, there's fixed interests here. There's social inhibition, no real identification with peers, no real friends throughout my entire childhood, even now. Strong pattern recognition, sensory stuff. Then basically it was August 12th of 2024. They're like, yeah, we're diagnosing you with level 1 autism.
I am 64 years old and a half. I'll be 65 in November. I realized with the help of two social workers in the fall of 2014 that I was autistic. I was 53. From the age of 11 to my diagnosis at age 53, I continually had thoughts of not wanting to live. Continually, always with me. All that stuff naturally dissipated. I'm not saying I never have thoughts like that anymore, but it naturally dissipated with my autism diagnosis.
Had a moment, it was about 2017, and my LuLaRoe dealer, very like dynamic and beautiful and energetic, and she was the top seller in like the whole state of Michigan, started doing a video series about having ADHD, finding out she has ADHD. And of course, my brain was like, that's weird. Like, you're so successful. You're so, um, obviously, I didn't have a good understanding of what ADHD is. I didn't have any understanding other than I thought it was maybe associated more with like cognitive issues and potentially like lower intelligence, which is unfortunate. But when she started talking about what it really meant for her, I knew immediately that she was talking about me immediately. As soon as I knew that it's not my fault that I am this way and that there are other people like me, it just shifted everything. And all of my, just the exhaustion that comes from those mind loops, um, it went away. A number of years later, as I was just, watching content on YouTube regarding ADHD and mental health, um, a a video was suggested to me of a young woman who has ADHD and also level 1 autism. And I watched that video and I just watched how she spoke on camera, her the way she talked. I knew I knew that I was similar to this girl. It just resonated a lot with me, and just the exhaustion I could feel coming off of her.
I don't think it was until college that I started to suspect, and then I hit grad school 3 years ago. The job that I had insurance, pretty decent insurance, so I went and got tested while I was under that so that it could be covered. So yeah, I got my diagnosis. So it was like, okay, yep, I had a feeling this is what it was going to be.
The autism, I didn't understand what was wrong with me the entire time. I didn't understand why I was functioning the way I was functioning and why everybody seemed to hate me. So when I finally got diagnosed with autism at 21, I've spent the past 2.5, almost 3 years now, basically relearning myself, because before that, I had to mimic everybody else to the extreme of trying to fit in enough that maybe they would hate me a little less and they would bully me a little less. And so when I finally got the diagnosis, just learning that and being able to sit and be like, okay, well, I'm not broken. I'm not too much. I'm just wired differently, changed so much for me.
I wish somebody had encouraged some of those traits that they saw in me. I wish that somebody had taught me to not be so mean to myself about the difference that I have. This isn't only a challenge. Here are your gifts. And because of ADHD, these are the gifts that you bring to the world. This is a gift that you need to learn how to harness and not view it as a negative character quality.
It's okay to be in dialogue with my vulnerabilities instead of just trying to shut them down.
I wish people had told me that it wasn't like a moral failing. Right? I think a lot of the people who weren't diagnosed, even people who were, like my cousin, their struggles were labeled as character flaws. It's because you procrastinate too much. It's because you're not motivated enough. It's because you're not dedicated enough, or you're too lazy, or you're too hyper. You need to reel it in. You need to bring it down a notch. It is a character flaw. It is a moral failing. You need to go repent. And a lot of the times that I felt like I was different or I didn't understand something, I didn't feel like I was sinning. I just didn't know what I was supposed to be doing.
It's really okay to make space for and accept the part of you that doesn't feel like it fits in with the rest of the world. And that actually doing that is what's going to help you to live more freely.
You are a fully functional human, even though you don't want to be social.
I mean, the number one thing that would have made all of the difference would be that it's okay. It's not your fault. You know, this is not sin. You know, so number one thing, especially in a Christian context, is like you're fine. You're normal in your own way. And this is not your fault. This is not your fault. This is just how your brain works. It's physio, biological, biochemical. Yeah. This is not your fault.
People with sensitive bodies matter in the kingdom of God. I have a place in the world. I have a place in the body of Christ. I'm not kind of a weaker version of other people.
You're not broken, and it's not your fault. God is big enough to have known and have planned for it and have planned for the positives, right?
For me, a really key thing to living well has been getting support, whether that's coaching, therapy, friends. Oh my goodness, understanding friends, like your support system.
Either you decide, okay, I'm going to stay in my house and I'm never going to go out again, or I'm going to go out and be exactly who I am because I can't control it anyways. And if people have a problem with it, that's their problem.
Thankfully, I had friends who we've talked about this as adults, but suspect that they like probably also are somewhat on like a similar spectrum, which is why we got along so much because we were so brainy and like imaginative and completely socially oblivious to everything. Therapy has been a big one for me, and I'm also a big believer in like not all therapies work for everyone. I don't do talk therapy very well.
I've been in therapy for a long time, and I've been doing, my therapist is trained in EMDR. I have some trauma in my story, so it's been working really on that, but it's also really helped me rewire a lot of how I view myself, how I talk to myself. And I would say that's been one of the biggest things that's been helpful, because how I talk to myself has really, it's not all related to ADHD. I would say a large part probably is. Um, and so that has really supported just even building my own confidence.
Bypassing some of the overwhelm that I experience from things like unexpected noise, light, unexpected or unstructured social interactions. When I can control that more, and when I can say, hey, I just can't go to church today, or I'm going to wear my AirPods while the other bands play until my son's band plays, that can help a lot, because that's going to allow me to stay more regulated. And then that allows me to be a better partner, allows me to be a better parent.
Just the understanding, the loving me through it, the being there for me. I've had friends from my mom's school, from the international school, international Christian school, where they literally had to reteach me friendship because I didn't know what it meant.
Being more in tune with my own kids, learning what they need, has actually helped teach me a lot more about my own capacity, on all fronts: physical, emotional, spiritual, and really understanding, okay, yeah, I have these 24 hours in a day, but how I use those, that may drastically affect my capacity.
I'm not at where I wish I were at in life. But it got a lot easier to tolerate when I just decided it's not my fault.
I have a lot of the mental hyperactivity. I mean, my brain just doesn't stop. So I do brain dumps, where I'm like constantly writing stuff down. Now I know doodling is like if I'm doing something, I doodle. And if I have to listen, allowing myself to fidget. That was one thing that I was constantly told, stop fidgeting, stop fidgeting, stop fidgeting. And I'm like, no, I have to fidget. I will not be able to pay attention if I don't fidget. And so finding ways that like I can do that, that's not going to maybe distract somebody else. And I have a really good support system, which I'm really blessed by.
Being in an environment where it was okay to be different, taking that time and being in that place, and then learning that people can be safe.
For me, listening to the stories of other people who are like me, especially those who have done quite a bit of self-work, that is so helpful because it's not a psychologist or a therapist who may or may not be neurodivergent. When it's somebody else who's just like you, but has done the work of finding ways to live, like that is super helpful, I think.
I never expected to feel good again, but I do.
I wish I had known. It's not that I haven't been told this, but that I had known internally that it was okay to be different and that it was okay to be who you are, even if people don't seem to like it.
You weren't made for the system, and the system wasn't designed for you.
It's okay to be sensitive, I guess. If it's supported and understood, it's a gift to be empathetic, and it belongs in the world. We're not aberrations.
I guess it's just like not your fault, dude. Like you're having a really hard time and there's really nothing you can do about it, but it's okay because you didn't cause it, you know?
You don't have to be perfect, in that any voice in your head that is really drawing you into a pattern of perfectionism is not speaking the truth to you. God made you uniquely you, and that's a good thing. And that includes the way your brain is wired, and that you are needed in the world exactly the way your brain is wired.
I would just say that it's okay to be different, and it's okay if things hurt more than you thought they would. Because life is really hard. And especially if you have to leave everything that you know behind, especially as someone who is neurodivergent, your brain will take the information and it will work differently with it than you think it should. Or than you think, well, this person is fine. That doesn't mean you're broken. That just means your brain is different. And that's okay. It's okay if it hurt more than you expected. It's okay if you dealt with it a different way. It's okay if it was really freaking hard. It doesn't have to be hard for somebody else in a different way than it's hard for you. If it's hard for you, it's hard for you, and it's important that you know that, and it's important that you're okay with dealing with that.
That creativity, that unique capacity, your sensitivity to emotions and to other people, your giftedness, and your unique skills and ability to see and read patterns in the world and understand the nuances of how people interact and how situations can change on a dime. Being able to read people's energy just so intuitively that you could feel when the room has shifted. All of these are good things. And just because that may or may not look like a certain grade or a certain result or outcome, that doesn't make it wrong or bad. It's just unique.
The first thing I would want parents and organizations, or kind of whatever capacity that you're interacting with TCKs, is to be curious instead of judging.
It's important that people are understanding and are okay with me sometimes needing a bit more help. with me sometimes acting a little bit different than you would expect. Be like, okay, your brain might work differently than mine. What does that mean? How can I support you? How can I be there for you? How can I care and include you without diminishing you in any way?
The most important thing is that the child and the parent realize this kid is legitimately different. They have a reason to be different. Their sensitivities, that is how they are. So therefore, what seems like a preference must be acknowledged as a need. Now, that doesn't mean it can always be accounted for when you're traipsing through Zurich or wherever your flights are connecting. But there needs to be awareness that this kid is going to be going through a whole lot more.
It can feel awkward to be in a room with someone that's having like a really bad time with OCD compulsions. I don't know. Treat us like normal people. I don't need sympathy. I just need like acceptance.
Don't expect this student, this child, this person to live and function and work and think the way that you do. Find out what it is like for them to live in their body, with their brain, with their unique skills and challenges and giftedness. You will better be able to be a support, to be a help, to be a guide, to help find resources, to equip them to learn, to explore their abilities and their God-given purpose in the world. The way that you seek to understand is like the very first foundational step in all of that.